Our seventh tradition states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. We will now pass the basket. This is a weekly STEP meeting. Our format is as follows. The speaker is asked to talk for 25 to 30 minutes on the STEP of that week, followed by discussion or questions until 7 p.m. You can find these weekly meetings on our YouTube page, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group at Doylestown. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and share. That brings us to the speaker portion of the meeting on this day of December 11th, 2023 in Doylestown, PA, at the Monday night 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and STEP Group at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is Olivia, and they will be sharing their experience on Step 1. Please help me welcome Olivia.
So hi, I'm Olivia, and I am definitely an alcoholic.
Hey, Olivia.
So I grew up for my qualifications, I grew up in an alcoholic family. My dad was a raging, abusive alcoholic, and so I saw that even before I had my first drink, and at no point did that ever faze me to not drink. They say a lot of times children of alcoholics either they become alcoholics themselves or they completely stay away from everything. I chose to not stay away from anything. My drinking didn't start till later. I didn't have my first drink till I was 17 away at college, and I would party all the time. Within my first month away, I ended up blacking out and falling down a flight of concrete stairs and losing 3 teeth. So off the bat, I had a horrible drinking career that just ended with catastrophe after catastrophe. A big part of my story is relapse because I had a big problem admitting I had a problem with alcohol. For years, a big defect of mine is self-will, that I think I can do this on my own. That kept me out of the rooms for years, that I had the willpower to stop on my own, which I never did, that I didn't have a problem, that because I was still able to, until I started losing the things I had. I still had a job, I still was having promotions, I still had a social life, like I was still able to travel on my own, even though that was horrible too, but I was still able to do all these things despite the fact that I couldn't go a day without drinking. And I'm just a little nervous.
Okay, you got this.
And despite all that, I still wouldn't admit it. And things took a turn during COVID. I went from being a functioning alcoholic, nevertheless an alcoholic, but I did cross over. I was furloughed for 3 months, so I was given unemployment plus that extra stimulus money to literally stay at home, stay away from people, so I didn't spread COVID, and drink. And that's what I did for 3 months. It was a continuous drinking, watching TV, never leaving my apartment, having like mental breakdown after mental breakdown from like the isolation, because I moved out on my own right before COVID. And I got to a very dark place then, and that is definitely when things became very unmanageable. After that, probably like 9 months after that, I ended up losing my job that I had been in for 6 years, had been promoted 4 times, had opportunities that I probably will never have at another job like that. I hurt relationships with my family. At one point, I wasn't even allowed at my mother's house, whether I was sober or not, because I had stolen from them. I had lied to them so much. My mother has, at one point, to try to stop me from drinking, I'd come to her house on my days off, because those were my big binge days. And so on a weekly basis, my mom was seeing me withdraw at her house, and she just couldn't handle it anymore. But relapse is a big part of my story. I was first introduced to AA through my mother's best friend. She's actually one of us, and she's been in AA for over 30 years. And because this was after COVID and all the fabulous Zoom meetings we have, a former sponsee of hers, she set me up with to be my sponsor. I used to see her, we used to have Zoom conferences for our one-on-one, and we'd go on Zoom meetings together. And that worked for a bit. It worked for about a month. And I slowly got into the pattern of I started talking to her less. Our Zoom calls became phone calls, which became text, which became nothing. I started going to less meetings. I'm not proud to admit, but with Zoom meetings, I have drank on Zoom meetings. Turn off your camera. It's sadly easy. And I kind of just went I lost my month I had, which at the time I didn't think it was a big deal. I went back to drinking. I was like, well, I pretty much saw it as a tune-up. That I was drinking too much. I went too far. But now that I had a month break, I could like collect myself and get back to drinking normally. Because that's, yeah. Because, yeah, anyone that's not an alcoholic definitely says drinking normally. Like, that's a thing. It continued the consequences. And I did actually go to treatment for the first time last November. In 2 days will actually be the anniversary of when I came here the first time. But finally, after years, my mom finally helped convince me to go to treatment after I was potentially losing my second job because of drinking. And while I was in treatment, I really thought I had done the step one. They say step one's the only step you have to do perfectly. Admit that you're powerless over alcohol and that your lives had become unmanageable. And I had thought I did that. I worked what I thought was a strong program. I had a sponsor who I diligently saw every week. I worked the steps. I went to different meetings, and I still had a home group, still had my core meetings, made friends with women. Some women I'm still friends with. And I was taking the suggestions I was giving, which is a big thing and even now I'm having to deal with it, that I have to just trust that there's people in the program that know better than me. Because my fabulous thinking got me here. Well, not here, but to rehab. Sorry. But after I was doing, thought I had completed the steps. I know the steps are never ending. Like once you finish, you start up again, and they have to be part of your daily life. But after I thought I had a grasp on them, I did go home. And at first I was okay. I was going to meetings. I did keep my sponsor in Pennsylvania, even though I lived 2 hours away from here where I went, because I had a great connection with her and I trusted her. And so I decided to keep my sponsor, even though we were 2 hours apart. I thought I could still make it work. And things were good at first. But slowly, what I learned from the steps was like going away. So first thing to go was my nightly 10-step. A week after being home, that went very quickly. Then meetings started to go as well. And talking to my sponsor became less frequent and then not at all. And then isolating, and slowly all my bad habits came back. And so drinking seemed like an option. And if you truly are perfecting step one, you know it's never an option to pick up a drink. And I felt that one time was okay, even though there is nothing in my past experience of drinking that shows I can drink for one night. And it continued to show that I couldn't drink for one night. I picked up on May 31st of this year, and when I had 6 months and 27 days, and for almost 2 months, there was not a single 24-hour period where I was sober. I, in like less than a week, went back to drinking a liter of vodka a day. When they say you pick up where you left off, like, it's no joke. I literally did pick up where I left off. In less than 2 months, I was starting to have problems at work. Thankfully, I did get help before any consequences set in, but I was starting to have problems at work. I was starting to have problems with my family. Everything was going back to where it was. So I did decide to come back to treatment, and I really did have to look at, I just remember, because I truly thought I had admitted to myself that I was powerless over alcohol, and that my life had become unmanageable. And I did admit to the unmanageability because even sober, alcohol's just a symptom of the problem. The problem's me. Oh.
It's like, yeah.
But the problem's me. And teaching myself that alcohol can never be a solution because, sorry.
You're doing great.
Oops, sorry. That alcohol can never be a solution for me because of how quickly everything was ruined with it. Going back through the big book, I realized my reservations I had, because we all have reservations. Well, we shouldn't have reservations, but I know some, like if, my mother were to die, I think that would make me drink, like different things. For me, like my reservation was that I thought I had this, which looking back, it's funny to say that because I had 7 months, I thought I had this. I mean, like, there's, my grand sponsor has 40 years, but no, I was okay with 7 months. I have this. And it took me a couple tries, but to learn that, that I do have a problem with alcohol and the unmanageability. I've made the tough decision to relocate up here, away from the state that I've lived my whole life in. And because for me, people, places, and things are very big. I do have to remember that I do take myself with me, so that's still there. But making myself a better person and being honest. I have a sponsor. She's back there. And, being totally honest with working the steps, because keeping anything from her or lying to myself, all it's going to do is eventually lead me back to a drink. If it doesn't lead me to a drink, it's going to lead me to other old bad behaviors. I was told once that my disease will show up in different ways, because we've all heard the saying, like, while you're in the meeting, your disease is doing push-ups in the parking lot. So your disease will find other ways to get to you. Mine was through a guy. My disease found a way to get to me, and I was breaking rules that I shouldn't have been. And that's something we have to learn from. So, some people I know, shopping's a thing. I started getting a little crazy with the shopping. So we have to just make sure we're working the steps to our fullest extent so they don't so our disease doesn't come out us from other ways. Because it's really easy to, it was compared once to me as whack-a-mole. So you take care of one, another one comes up. Our disease is like playing whack-a-mole. So, and the steps will keep them in check. And it starts by doing step 1 perfect. That's it.
Please limit your sharing to 3 minutes, and we don't really care. But please keep your shares related to the step. If you feel like drinking or if you've had a drink today, please see me or speak to someone after the meeting. We ask that you please refrain from the use of profanity. We are in a church and on a spiritual journey, and we have a baby. It's open to y'all.